we're cruising with Veronica on the 30th of September 2017, and we just finished listening to the Chris Hillman album, Bidin My Time. What did you think about it, Veronica?
I really liked it. A lot of good guitar riffs, a lot of good harmonies. It was fun to listen to. Very relaxing.
Very good. Okay, so here's the background. Chris Hillman was one of the founding members of the Byrds.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And he was started off as the bass player, and then later on played guitar and mandolin in later iterations of the band. And then he later on went kind of solo. And then fast forwarding into the 80s, he and an old friend of his named Herb Pedersen, who's also a guitar player, banjo player, and singer, were the core members of a group called the Desert Rose Band.
Okay.
And also in the Desert Rose Band was a guitar player, a multi-instrumentalist actually, named John Jorgenson. And the steel guitar player was named J.D. Manis. Bass player was named Bill. Oh my God, I'm losing it. Okay, well we know who Bill is. And anyway, so Desert Rose Band was hugely popular in country music. They played on the Grand Ole Opry. They recorded 3 or 4 albums. A couple of them went gold. They toured the world. They were like huge. And then, you know, they basically went their separate ways. And in the 90s and 2000s, Chris Hillman and Herb Pedersen performed as a duo. They recorded and toured as a duo, and most recently they've been doing that. So, jumping back to the Byrds for a minute, one of the Byrds' biggest fans was a guy named Tom Petty.
Oh, wow.
When Tom was growing up, he really liked that jangly 12-string guitar sound that Roger McGuinn was doing. That was kind of the signature sound of the Byrds. This is 64, 65 in there, and so as Tom later got into music, got into playing in bands and stuff, connected with another guitar player named Mike Campbell rather, and the two of them came up through a number of groups, and Mike and Tom, you know, later co-founded Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh, wow.
So Mike Campbell is like the guitar player in the Heartbreakers for the last 40 years.
That's crazy.
Okay, so Tom Petty has a big affinity for the Byrds, for Roger McGuinn's 12-string guitar sound, and so forth. And jumping back again to when he was a kid growing up, he and Mike Campbell, one of their first groups was a group called Mudcrutch. This is in Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Later they came to L.A., but as you know, Mudcrutch kind of fell apart, and when they came to L.A., that's when they formed Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Wow.
In Santa Monica, actually.
It's all connected.
To be specific, yeah. So, but Mudcrutch reformed. Petty reformed Mudcrutch in 2016. 2015 or 2016, I'll get the dates right. But they recorded like a reunion album, and then he took them on the road. And he called up, because he needed an extra voice and an extra guitar player, he called up Herb Pedersen. Are you with me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Herb toured with Tom Petty and Mudcrutch.
Oh, wow.
All during the summer, spring and summer, or you know, late 2015 into 2016, into the summer of 2016. And I went to, and then, you know, meanwhile, his duo things with Chris were kind of on hiatus while Herb was on the road.
Yeah.
So the night after Herb wrapped up his tour with Mudcrutch and Petty, he and Chris had a duo gig in Carpinteria, and Nadine and I went.
That's awesome.
We went to that gig.
Okay.
And so afterward, because you know, Herb and I have done interviews. I've got interviews with him on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning
and you know,
that, yeah.
I've seen him at Vincenzo's playing with the Grateful Dudes. He's a bluegrass legend, and you know, so we're pals. So after this duo gig, though, in Carpinteria, Herb split.
Oh no!
I mean, right off the stage, he was gone.
Oh no, that's fine.
Because literally, he had been off the plane from touring with Mudcrutch, playing with his rock and roll band, then somehow got to Carpinteria in time to play this gig.
Wow.
And it was like a real kind of neck snap, whiplash thing, because the music is completely different.
I bet he's tired.
So he was pretty knackered.
Yeah.
So, but I did get a chance to talk with Chris.
Oh, okay, that's something.
And, you know, we talked about her touring with Tom Petty and so forth. And Chris told me, this is July of 2016, Carpinteria, Chris told me, I'm going to be working on a new album with Tom.
Oh, wow.
Producing.
Oh.
I said, or something to that effect.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, he said, you know, mum's the word, keep it on the down low, and I want it to, you know, be a big deal. But because the deal hadn't been, like, completely firmed up and the papers signed and so forth. But anyway, so I sat on that. So meanwhile, Tom Petty produced this album.
Oh, wow.
And there are Heartbreakers on this album.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no wonder I recognize the name.
And there are Desert Rose Band members on this album.
So it's like a good mix of everybody.
And there are 2 Byrds on this album.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
No wonder it's so good.
Now, if we start with Bells of Rimney, the opening track, that's a Byrd song.
Oh, wow.
It's on the first or second album.
So it's just a cover, kind of?
Well, no, it's not a cover. It's a song. It's a song that Pete Seeger. Well, it actually is a cover. The Bells of Rimney was written by Pete Seeger and Idris Davies. So the Byrds covered it. They did kind of a folk rock version of it in the mid-'60s, and you know, I'm sure it put a lot of mailbox money in Pete Seeger's pocket, which helped him to carry on doing what he was doing, which was a wonderful thing. And but on this version of this remake of Bells of Rimney, it's Chris and Herb with David Crosby, who was a member of the Byrds, and was on the original Byrds recording, and then John Jorgenson, who was one of the Desert Rose Band members, and actually Jorgenson is the arranger of all of these tracks, this whole album.
That's crazy.
I mean, Petty was like basically in the back, executive producer type. You know, and Herb is executive producer type. But Jorgenson was really the guy who, from my ears and from the credits and from what I can tell, was really the guy who arranged all the tunes and was the musical director for the sessions. Anyway, so in addition to those guys, you've got and Mark Fain, excuse me, the upright bass player. Okay, now he was not the original, not going to be on the sessions originally. Okay. It was Bill, whose name I'm forgetting. It's in the credits. Was the original bass player from the Desert Rose Band, was going to be the bass player on this session, but he passed away. Annie and Bill. I can't believe that I can't remember it. I'm having a complete complete brain fart. Anyway, I'll remember it. So, Bryson. Bill Bryson was the bass player who was going to be on this album, but he passed away. So Mark Fain played the sessions, and he's a great upright bass player. So he really, did the number. In fact, Chris dedicates the entire album to the memory of Bill.
Oh, that's cool.
So in addition to those guys, though, you've got two Heartbreakers. You've got Ben Montench, the piano player, and Steve Ferroni, the drummer.
Oh, wow.
From the Heartbreakers.
Oh, cool.
So you got Byrds, Desert Rose Band, and Heartbreakers on Bells of Rimney.
Wow.
That blows my freaking mind.
That's crazy.
Okay, and then now look at Bidin My Time, the second track, and the title track.
Yeah.
Now look at the lineup on that one. Okay, the first four guys listed are Chris, Herb, John, and J.D. Manis.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, he was the steel guitar player in the Desert Rose Band.
Yeah.
So you've got basically 2/3 of the Desert Rose Band on that track.
John Jorgenson does the harmonica.
Now that's on the next track. Don't jump ahead here. Still on Bidin My Time.
Sorry, I got
Okay.
excited.
And then in addition to the Desert Rose Band, you got Mark Fain on bass, and then Ben Mont again, and Steve Ferroni, Heartbreakers. So it's like Desert Rose Band and Heartbreakers on Bidin My Time.
That's crazy.
You look at it and you know it's going to sound great, but if you listen to it like you did, and without knowing any of this, and then you find out,
you appreciate it a little bit more.
Exactly, you appreciate it a little bit more. I couldn't have. It was like you finished my sentence. Okay, given all I can see. Now, this is a song that Chris co-wrote with Steve Hill. Who's also the co-writer of Bidin My Time and a long-time collaborator with Chris. He and Chris go back a long way. I'll have to research exactly how far, but many years and many co-written songs.
Awesome. And
so, given all I can see is a pretty philosophical kind of song. I'm not exactly sure who wrote the lyrics, but I'm also going to interject that this is a lot of these songs are written from the original songs, especially the newer songs are written that Chris and Steve wrote them from the viewpoint of a 65, 70-year-old guy looking back at a life, a very fulfilled, a very full life, and but also like in Given All I Can See, it's kind of looking at what's going on in the world. It's wow, it's still pretty crazy. It's like, given all that I can see, I guess, like, in spite of everything that's going on, I still have hope. I still have a positive feeling about things. And look at who plays harmonica on that track.
Tom Petty.
Tom Petty plays harmonica on Given All I Can See. And there you got Chris and Herb and John as the main players, with Mark on bass, Ferroni on drums again, and TP on the harmonica. Just crazy, just beautiful. And then the next track, Different Rivers. Different Rivers, Chris Hillman and Steve Hill, another co-composition. The different rivers all flow to the sea. And that's think about that for a minute. Think about...
We all end up in the same place. Kind of like it.
Bang! Thank you.
No problem. I'm pretty good at interpreting musicians.
And who's on that?
Which one was it? Given All I Can See?
Different Rivers.
That's
Chris, Herb, and John, and Mark.
John, Mark, and Ben Mont.
And Ben Mont on the keyboards. And then Here She Comes Again. This is another flashback to the Byrds. This is a Chris and Roger McGuinn song, Roger McGuinn was the co-founder, one of the co-founders of the Byrds, the lead singer, one of the chief songwriters, and played a 12-string electric guitar. Wore the granny glasses, famously, and so Here She Comes Again is a classic Byrds song. They do a really, really nice job on this, and so read the players, Veronica.
Chris, Herb, Roger, Tom Petty, Josh, Vermont, and Steve. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Roger being Roger McGuinn.
Roger McGuinn, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a really nice combination of Byrds and Heartbreakers.
Yes, it is. It's pretty awesome.
Now, I'm going to flash back again. I remember that there were times back in the 80s when Tom Petty was on the road, and he would invite, because he wrote Tom Petty's American Girl. Tom Petty's first single in 76 was a stone cold homage to the Byrds.
Yeah.
Okay?
I can see that.
Ringing 12-string guitar. Okay? So in the 80s and 90s, there were times when the Heartbreakers were on the road, and Tom would invite Roger McGuinn to come up on stage, and they would both put on 12-string guitars, right, and sing a couple of Byrds songs.
Oh, wow.
And that was like just off the hook.
That's fabulous.
And they did that at the Troubadours of Folk Festival that you and I attended with Scott.
Okay.
And you were there. You saw it. You saw Tom Petty sitting in with Roger McGuinn.
How old was I?
I don't know. It was 1993, 94. So you're like 8 or 9. But we have pictures of us there.
Cool.
Anyway, so you were there. You were in the house and you witnessed that.
Cool.
So here we are, years again. Tom and Roger have maintained their friendship and musical mutual love affair, I guess, if you will. And so here we are again. Here she comes again. Here we come again. We've got Tom Petty and Roger McGuinn on a Chris Hillman album.
Yeah.
I love that. I just freaking love that. Okay, and the next, I digress, but Ferroni and Benmont. Now, Josh Jove, or Jove, I'm not exactly sure who he is, but he plays electric 12-string on Here She Comes Again. He's one of the studio guys, I think. I think he was one of the engineers. I'll have to look in the credits, but he has something to do with the record. But apparently he's a pretty good 12-string player. So he and Roger both played 12 strings, and TP played electric guitar, electric 6-string, no doubt. And the next song is really, really choice. It's Walk Right Back. It's a Sonny Curtis song. Now, Sonny Curtis was a member of the Crickets, Buddy Holly's group.
Oh, cool.
And was also a major songwriter for other people. And the Everly Brothers had a huge hit with this song, Walk Right Back.
Oh, wow.
And the connection here is that it's one of the songs that Chris and Herb perform in their duo shows. So here we are. We get the full band treatment here with Chris and Herb, but also with Jorgenson and Mark Fain and Steve Ferroni on the track too. And it's just so sweet. It's just such a great homage to the music that was influential to the guys that later formed the Byrds.
Yeah.
Because that skips back a generation, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Roger also played for a time with, or one of them played for a time with the Everly Brothers. And I could be mixing them up with Albert Lee, but forgive me. I'll look that up. Such as the world we live in. This is another Steve Hill, Chris Hillman song, and very philosophical. Such is the world we live in. There are. I really would like to talk with Chris about the messages that he's putting across here, because it could be interpreted in a number of different ways, and I would hate to misinterpret. And he may want to leave it that way. You never know. But that said, just a real kind of observation of things as they are now, from the standpoint of a guy who's been through all kinds of stuff, and thinks that what's going on right now is really bizarre. Let's just put it that way. When I Get a Little Money, that's a cute song. That's a cover. It's by Nathan G. Barrow. We're just rolling into Baker now. Population 600, by the way. 21 minutes into my oral review here. This is good. And there's the Baker temperature sign. How about that? So the next song, When I Get a Little Money, that's a cute song by Nathan G. Barrow. That's got Chris and Herb, John and Mark Fain. It's pretty much all acoustic, and it's a really kind of neat song about when I get some money, I'll buy some happiness, but it's realizing that, you know, at the end of the day, you don't need money for that. That's kind of the message that I get from that. But it's a light, bright, really tasty little bluegrass piece. The next song, She Don't Care About Time. This is a Gene Clark song. Gene Clark was one of the founding members of the Byrds.
Oh, wow.
And this version is just beautiful. And it's like the Heartbreakers and the Byrds. The Byrds front end with the Heartbreakers rhythm section. You got Ferroni on drums, Mark Fain on upright bass, Ben on piano, with John, Herb, and Chris on the various stringed instruments and the vocals. And it's a beautiful, beautiful cover of that song, and it's just fine. New Old John Robertson by Christopher Hillman and James Roger McGuinn. Now this really goes back to their acoustic folk days, and it's a real wonderful old school folk song that it tells a story of a guy that's I think it's just pretty much right around the Civil War time. I'll have to go back and listen to it again. Chris, Herb, John, Gabe Whittier is the fiddle player, and Mark Fain on the upright bass. Restless, second to last track, Chris Hillman and Steve Hill, and this has, you know, the full Desert Rose Band, Heartbreakers connection. And Restless it's written from, it's just beautiful. It's like, I'm going to be restless until I reach the end. In other words, I'm going to rock until I drop. Don't roll me over. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to enjoy every minute and every second, and appreciate and love the people that I cherish.
Okay. Did it run out? Okay.
Yeah. Until he reaches the end. Which is a very eloquent way of saying, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah. That's what I got from it too.
And then Wildflowers. Read the players.
Chris Hillman, Herb Pedersen,
Pedersen.
Pedersen, sorry. John Jorgenson?
Jorgenson.
Jorgenson. Vermont Tech.
Benmont Tench.
Looks like Tech. Gabe Witcher and Mark Fame.
Okay, spell Gabe's last name.
Witcher.
Okay, and he was on Restless also.
Yes, he was. He played the fiddle. He did a great job.
Yeah.
I really liked him on the fiddle.
And, you know, Wildflowers is kind of like, that's where I want to be, you know, after I check out. I just want to be in a
Peaceful place.
In a peaceful place.
Yeah, that's what I got from it. I really liked it. I thought it rounded out the album very, very well at the end with everything else. I really liked it.
Awesome. Now, you listen to this record and you find out that Tom Petty produced it. But his fingerprints are so light.
Yeah, they are.
You know, it's really, I think, Jorgensen and Herb, because they are like peas in a pod with Chris.
Yeah.
The three of them are like so simpatico. They can finish each other's sentences. They can. They don't need to rehearse. You know, I mean, they're just intuitive.
Shake and bake.
Musicians and great personal friends for decades. And yeah, so but Petty is relatively new to that dynamic. But so I think what the best thing Tom did was to get the right people into the room.
Yeah. And
just let them go.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, he basically was there if needed on an as needed basis. And if somebody said we need a harmonica player, you know, Tom said probably. I mean,
step in.
you know, raised his
problem.
hand. You know?
I can do it.
I got that.
Sure.
And but you know, it's a testament to his respect for Chris.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other musicians who were on the sessions that he did not try to make it a Tom Petty record.
No, he did not. Definitely not.
So that's kind of my review.
I think it's a very accurate review.
So okay, so there's a little insert. Pull that up.
Okay, give me a second.
While I got the tape rolling, I want to kind of describe that. The little insert is pretty cool because it's just like a 2-page insert, but it has the credits. You know, produced by Tom Petty, executive producer Herb Pedersen. It was recorded by Ryan Ulyate, Ulyate, at the Clubhouse, Los Angeles, and Shoreline Recorders in Malibu, California. Assistant engineers Josh Jove and Chase Simpson. It was mixed by Ryan at Shoreline in Malibu and Ryan's Place in Topanga. Musical arrangements, John Jorgenson. Crew chief and logistics, Alan Bugs Weidel, W-E-I-D-E-L. Transportation, Mark Carpenter. Backline text, Steve Winstead and John Bunker. Photography, Josh Jove. Okay, he took the CD, he took the cover shot. Camilla McGuinn, Roger's wife, took this shot of Roger,
like
which is on the inside. It's a picture of Roger at the microphone in the studio recording his part. On the far left is a picture of Tom. Looks like he's got his Gretsch guitar with a single cutaway. Nice black guitar. Wearing a hat, shades, you know, red goatee and shoulder-length hair. Looks like he's just chilling in the studio. Then on the insert on the top right is a pic of David Crosby sitting on a couch holding a piece of sheet music with Chris, and I would imagine they're probably just going over how the harmonies are going to go. And then in the lower right is a photo of Chris and Herb. And the back cover is all of Chris's thank yous. And Chris ends it like this. You know, after all of the thank yous to the musicians and everybody, which I won't do here because it'll cost money to transcribe, and I'll just type it up. But he ends it with, "Good words are a honeycomb, and their sweetness is a healing of the soul." And that's from Proverbs 16:22. And Chris further ends it by saying, "This album is dedicated to the memory of my dear friend, Bill Bryson." There you go. I think it's one of the best albums I've heard in a long time.
Agreed.
Over and out.